Well, it is the collaboration that everyone has been waiting for. And by everyone, I mean no one except me and Dan Mahar, because now we have to talk less on the OHL podcast this week. We welcome in the best podcasters the Ontario Hockey League has to offer. Dan, you promised me it's okay if I say that, right? These are the best podcasters in the O.
Oh, for sure.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
With all due respect to the fellas at the Odd Pod who had me on their show this week. They're great, but we're with Brandon Caputo, who is the founder of the Armchair GM Pod and the host of the Dog Pound podcast out of beautiful St. Catharines. Brandon, thank you for this collaboration.
Always love to talk to you, Mike, and I appreciate you coming on our chats for the Western Conference Final. It was fun to have you on, and that London Kitchener series did not disappoint.
Didn't disappoint who?
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah, okay.
I got to see the rivalry in full force in the playoffs. It was fantastic. Although, again, it didn't go as the Rangers' way, but it was fun to see it from a different lens. That's for sure.
That's fair. I'll give you that. But you got to understand, I'm getting a little long in the tooth here, Brandon, and I've been to a lot of Kitchener-London playoff series, and they keep ending the same way. You know what I'm saying?
You're not wearing the Habs jersey anymore, Mike. You're all good.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Along with Brandon, a couple of other stone cold beauties on the OHL podcast circuit, Reese Domani and Colin Ward. Together, they are the OHL in 60 podcast and the Dogcast pod out of the beautiful telephone city of Brantford. Reese, good day. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I'm excited. When you first sent us the message before the season ended, got excited. Not for the season to end, but for today. So no, thank you for having me on and us on today.
Wardy, it's great to have you here too. And I'm going to start with a hard-nosed question for you, okay? All right. Why is it that Josh Brown, esteemed reporter for the Waterloo Region Record, is shouting? Dan, you know what I'm talking about here, right? Like, what the hell? We
do.
basically work in his back. We're practically neighbors, and he's shouting out the OHL in 60 podcast as his must listen every week. What the hell have we done wrong?
Nothing. I don't know. I have no clue.
You guys deserve the shout out, but I think he just told us we're chopped liver for a while.
No, I appreciate the time. It's always fun to chat, Mike. Definitely. I mean, now with the new announcement yesterday with the opening nights, I know the Bulldogs will be in Kitchener night one. I don't know how great that is when two teams, you never know how they're going to be this upcoming season. I hope there's expectations for both sides to go in, but no, at any time I have a chance to chat with Josh. Josh is a great guy, great reporter, covered the Rangers for a long time. And no, he's a great person. So it's always great to chat with people with credibility in the league, because that's kind of what you do to boost your platform yourself.
Let's not get carried away with Josh Brown and credibility. No. I love the guy. I really do. And I only tease him because I know him well enough that he can take it. He is great. And I love seeing him as much as I do during the season. So we'll let Brandon take just a back seat for a moment here, because you touched on it, Colin. Night one, it's me and Dan in Kitchener, and you and Reese coming on in with the Brantford Bulldogs. But let's just talk about the way the season's starting. I heard from, should I name the source? I'm going to name the source, legendary OHL broadcaster who just announced his retirement, Larry Malott out of Guelph, even before this opening night announcement was made, that he thought that Brantford Kitchener could be an OHL final next year. I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but hell of an opening night, fellas.
Yeah, great advertising. I mean, all summer now we have to advertise it, and it's going to be great. And we're going to be talking that specific game. I know the next night the Bulldogs have their home opener against Peterborough, and that's going to be on the back burner because, when these two teams are expected to be heavyweights this season, go head-to-head night one, it's going to be interesting to see what the rosters are. I mean, I expect guys from both sides to be at camp still, which is too bad for the fans. I mean, that's why we're here. That's why we talk every week. We want to give the best that we can for their fans that listen, and it's too bad that the fans will miss that out. They'll miss out on elite talent that is in the stands just because of training camps and NHL camps going on. But I'm excited for it. I think that Kitchener, you saw the potential last year going through the season, the amount of respect they got from the London Knights in that conference final, even the effort that they showed in that series with their young talent that they had. It's going to be a great first game. I expect both these teams to be competitive, as they always have been. They've shown that for the last multiple years that even when they're the 7th seed, hey, for the London fans, they can still find a way to break your heart in the first round, like Kitchener can. They're always competitive, and I think that both sides are well coached. Jay McKee just getting extended with Brantford. I think it's one of the, and when they announced their rivalry weekend in October, and you look at that, and it's like, well, it's too bad it couldn't have been like 2 seasons ago where it was at home and home with the Rangers and Bulldogs to really give that momentum and the crowd and everything in that little home and home that they did 2 seasons ago, and how great that was. But no, it should be exciting, and it's great for the league on night one. I know all the eyes in the Ontario Hockey League world are going to be on Brantford Kitchener just because of the expectations both clubs have.
We're going to come back to that idea of the home and home and how there should be more of it as we get into this collaboration, because I think we're going to feel similarly as podcasters in this Ontario Hockey League about the schedule as it stands today and where we might be able to tweak it. But Reese, let's come over to you on, and Colin just touched on this with the Jay McKee extension. I think that's some much needed stability there in Brantford. I was a little, I'm not going to lie, I was a little worried with the rather mysterious and quick dismissal of Matt Turek, and I thought, what direction is the Hyman family taking this team? But I think the extension of Jay McKee is a really good sign there for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, it is. And I think when you look at a lot of the vacancies that were around the pro ranks, whether it be the AHL, the NHL, that's kind of where you're like, ooh, Matt Turek left. And you kind of had a feeling he was going to be a part of the Senators organization eventually. I think it was just a matter of when. But yeah, you're like, oh, is Jay going to follow? Like, what are we going to see here? And then, all of a sudden, 3-year extension. He's here for another 3 seasons with the Bulldogs. And I think there's a part of him that, as much as I'm sure he would love to coach in the AHL level, at the NHL level, I think he loves teaching young men how to succeed on the ice and off the ice. I think he takes a lot of pride in that. I mean, we see it every game, Colin. I'm sure you saw it as well. Brownie's seen it as well when he was in Kitchener, where he'll give you the time of day, and he loves being in the Ontario Hockey League or just at the junior hockey level in general. So, it sounds like the full staff is going to be back. That includes Ryan Kuabar. That includes Vince Lace. You bring in Palaziz to be the goaltending coach. So to have the main man behind the bench, and my parents, they have season tickets 2 rows behind Jay McKee. So they're in every shot that Jay McKee gets on camera. So I think it's kind of funny. But I know the fans are thrilled to have Jay McKee back for another 3 seasons, and we are as well. And I'm sure the players are also.
Just imagine if Larry Malott actually had a crystal ball and is right. Think of the subplots we've already got. Former Rangers coach, former Rangers goalie, now in Brantford. Who knows? Dansky, how are you feeling about that opening night? We don't usually see an Eastern team coming in, but I'll take this matchup.
For sure. I think the point is great, though, about how early season is not the best time to see these teams if you're only going to see them once a year because of the guys that are missing and guys that aren't quite up to speed. I think the matchup's going to be great. One note, we saw Jackson Parson named CHL goaltender of the year today. We're going to find out how Kitchener is without Jackson Parsons, right? Because he did a lot for them last year, and that's not taking anything away from the rest of the team. But how many wins did he steal? And do they turn the crease over to a 17-year-old with about 15 games under his belt? Nothing against Jason Schaubel. Looks like a good goalie for the future. But I'm guessing between now and that game, we might see an addition in the crease for Kitchener. But I'm looking forward to that game. Those 2 teams are supposed to be heavyweights, and I'm not sure we'll see it in game 1 of the season, but I'm all for it.
All right, before we throw it over to Brandon and start talking a little bit about the Ice Dogs, Dan, you and I have touched on this an awful lot, and I know that Reese and Colin are going to have some things to say because things are coming up roses in Brantford when it comes to the NCAA rule change. But Dan, you and I got to touch on this last week. Oh boy, Brady Wasselin commits to BU, and that is a big piece out of the Ice Dogs lineup.
Yeah, if that's what, so there's some speculation though with Wasselin, and I know Brandon, you'll probably weigh in here, but is this a move to get moved? Does he want to leave Niagara? Because I think a kid at his age and with his experience, unlikely to get a whole lot of meaningful minutes in the NCAA next year. So we'll see how this plays out, but it's not a good thing for any franchise when your future star is leaving their 17-year-old season. So hopefully something changes in that front and they at least recoup assets there.
Yeah, so you're either recouping assets or you're losing the player to the NCAA. But either way, Brandon, and you got to see Waslin up close. What a season he just had. Little more about Brady.
Yeah, I mean, obviously was one of the top offensive players coming out of last year's OHL priority selection. He set a rookie record for the Ice Dogs for assists in a season, which, the Ice Dogs have some pretty impressive alumni, and they've had 3 straight years of rookie records with Kevin He, Ryan Robrick, and then now Brady Waslin breaking the assist record. So, Brady's one of those players that, I think flew under the radar a little bit this year, was more known as a shooter coming out of the draft, but really, elevated his playmaking ability, was getting, top 6 minutes at times, and obviously hit that rookie wall in the second half of the year. And with the Ice Dogs, did struggle in the second half of the year as well. So I did reach out to Ice Dog general manager Frankie Vola, and it's told that Waslin it won't be going this season, to their knowledge. It sounds like it's going to be for the 26-27 season to Boston University. So we'll see if anything changes with that. But at the moment, they are expecting Brady back with the Ice Dogs. But again, it's just part of the new reality that is the OHL, gentlemen, and the CHL in general. Colin, Reese have both talked about it. I've been able to touch on it. It's you want to make sure that you're retaining the top players within your organization, not only getting them to commit, but then also getting them to stay past 2 or 3 years, especially when you're trying to go for things like the Memorial Cup. And we know 2027, the open window in the OHL, if Kitchener's going to bid for it, if Niagara's going to try to bid for it, or any other team. So you just really don't know the unknown of how long you're going to have that core together. You might have to go for it a year earlier than you might have in the past. So I know Waslin's name a little bit came up in last year's trade deadline, maybe to Guelph, and your Jet Luchenko's name being thrown around as well. But I just didn't think that was the right move for Niagara at the time, knowing that they have such a young core, and keeping a guy like Brady Waslin around was going to be paramount, with him being possibly a first round pick in the NHL draft next year. So the Ice Dogs are hopeful that he's back next season, but obviously committed to Boston University on his personal Instagram account. Really good man on and off the ice, very spiritual young man as well. A great person to be around, and you always wish him, nothing but the best success. But I'd like to see him in the Ice Dogs jersey a little bit longer.
Okay, before we swing it back over to Reese and Colin on the NCAA impact, you mentioned another name there, Brandon, that I'd love a little more insight about. And again, this is a guy that Dan and I talked about last week when he was named the new general manager of the Niagara Ice Dogs. We love the pedigree coming out of that Windsor program, obviously, but you've had the chance to talk to Frankie Vola. He's been on your podcast. Tell us more about him.
Yeah, seems more on the quiet side. Seems like he's got his mindset on certain things. A guy that's around the rink all the time. He's spent a lot of time as a scout with the Oshawa Generals, has been the director of scouting and hockey operations with Bill Bowler there with the Windsor Spitfires, a great program there since 2017. So seems like he's one of those guys that lives at the hockey rink. He's always looking at scouting the young talent. He's already made 2 trades as well. This week, putting a stamp on the team, and knowing that they have to tweak some things if they really want to be a contender next season, if things go their way the next 2 seasons. But he's definitely got a lot of work to do, but it seems like he's got a plan. He's not rushing into getting a head coach hired at the moment. He's bringing in some of his own scouting staff, and really haven't got into who those names are yet. But you'd think that one of the main priorities is getting first round pick Ryerson Edgar to sign as well, which the Ice Dogs have done a good job of since that ownership change with the Burks to the Dobblers, when Sam Dickinson obviously went out the door and has gone on to become defenseman of the year in the Ontario Hockey League. But they got the commitments from Ryan Robrick, they got him from Ethan Zada, they got him from Brady Waslin. So you're hoping that with the changes that are being made, with coming out of that cultural review and everything that the Ice Dogs had to go through in the latter half of the season there, that that players do want to still go there because they see the potential, and getting Ryerson Edgar is obviously going to be a big one to have him signed and playing next season.
Contender is an interesting word. Dan, let me throw it back to you real quick from the Kitchener perspective. You talked about the likelihood of the Rangers bringing in a goaltender before the season starts, just so they are a little more experienced in net. But the Adam Valentini signing, the Rangers made a big deal about that. We talked about it last week on the OHL podcast. But the Rangers really, Dan, are coming into a season during which they will carry the weight of expectation for the first time under this new coaching staff.
Yeah, and they're carrying the weight of a whole lot of bodies right now too. So we'll see who shakes out in camp and earns that spot. I have a feeling some promises were made to Adam Valentini. He'll get top 6 minutes. They got a bunch of other kids that were looking for minutes last year and couldn't get them, like Weston Cameron and a few of these other young kids that are going to have roles. So it's going to be a competitive camp. Kitchener's still skewing a tad on the young side next year with a lot of the 07s and 08s, but we'll see who comes out of that pack, and then they might need to make some tweaks to that lineup. We heard Mike McKenzie reference that have a lot of 5'10" skill forwards, right? That's not a bad thing, but if you have too many, you're looking to change the composition of your roster. So I think between now and, kind of that first unofficial trade deadline that happens around mid-November, we'll see some tweaks to that lineup. But the expectations, like you said, are much higher. And I think his eyes will be focused on, like we talked about, the goaltending and getting a little bigger.
Reese, Colin, things have worked out very well, at least right now, for the Brantford Bulldogs when it comes to that NCAA rule change. But you can't talk about junior hockey in this country without talking about the impact of that change. Colin, start with you and your thoughts on how this has really changed the landscape in the league.
You lose a lot of good players, but you gain a lot of good players. It's more hurtful. And I mean, did a lot of reflecting on it since we talked about it on the OHL and 60 podcast a couple weeks ago about it. And you lose a lot of good players, but it's really the deficit it makes on the USHL and the OHA junior, provincial junior A, and the OJHL and the BCHL is where the deficit's really going to hurt in the grassroots level and growing the game below the Ontario Hockey League and the NCAA. My biggest concern is, I guess, I don't want it to turn into a U18 league. I think that's kind of the biggest concern from the OHL standpoint. Like, I don't want it to be where you draft a kid, and we see this all the years covering players. You draft a kid, they come in at 16 years old, you interview them and you talk to them. You can see the bright future. Draft year talks. Okay, it's either I'm getting drafted or I'm going to the NCAA, or I might do both. That's kind of the concern that I have, just because I don't want to see guys come for a year and bolt, or like use it as a minor league team. And I don't really. That's the one thing I have a problem with the agreement. But the positive is you're getting a lot of good talent that we would have never gotten before. You think back to even a couple of years ago, Adam Fantilli would have been in the league. Owen Power would have been in the league. Like, there would have been a lot of good players. And if you're good, you might not even see the light of the NCAA because you get a contract and it won't be an issue with the entry level contracts. But that's kind of my thoughts on it. There's some positives. We're getting a lot of elite talent, but we're losing elite talent as well. And when the season's on the grind and when you get those OAs, especially this year, it was so interesting at the end of the year where there was so many options for overagers. And that's why I hope the CHL can come to an agreement with maybe you can't leave till you're 19 years old or an overager, just because there's so little spots or OAs now anyways, now with the goaltending rule and stuff as well. But I just hope that they can come up with an agreement. You can't leave till you're 19. So at least you get 3 years in the Ontario Hockey League, sell seats. Like, if Connor McDavid would have been able to go to the NCAA, like, there wouldn't have been 4,000 people at a Erie Sudbury game. It's no offense to people in Sudbury. I love their community, but they wouldn't have sold out. It wouldn't have been sold out that once a year if it was just a random out of conference game without Connor McDavid in the game. And we saw the impact that the elite players have like that, like Connor Bedard in the WHL. Look at the Saddle Dome being sold out. Like, that doesn't happen without Connor Bedard. And that's why I'm hoping there can be a little bit of compensation toward the players possibly, but that's a slippery slope. But we would have never had those moments. And that's what what makes the league so great is the development and being able to see a guy go to the National Hockey League that we've covered for 3 to 4 years. That's cool. Like, that's the best part. So I hope that there's a possibility to where maybe at 19 you can first go to the NCAA. But at least you get 3 years. Because if you're here for 2 years, that's tough. It's so short term, and it's tough to really have stability in the league. Like, it already is tough for fans to buy a jersey of a player when they only got 4 or 5 years. Now it's like, well, I have an elite player and you might only be here for a year. So I'm hoping there could be an agreement like that where you got to play at least 3 seasons in the Ontario Hockey League, because it would be so neat to see the max potential, seeing some of these players that have left the Ontario Hockey League and some of the guys that have come in. Yeah, it's about even, maybe more to the Ontario Hockey League, but it would have been nice to see those elite guys that have left and have moved on to being able to play and make our league a little better.
Reese, how do you see it?
Yeah, I see it fairly similar. I think one point that we really got into on our season finale episode is NCAA. This is all about the players, right? We want to give them more opportunities to be exposed to professional scouts and have the opportunity to move to the National Hockey League. Um, I think there's has to be a certain level also of some national pride in wanting to play junior hockey in Canada. Um, for me, growing up as a kid, I kind of lived everywhere. I've lived in Hamilton, Windsor, Cambridge. So, when I was young in elementary school, I'd be going to games at the barn in Windsor, and would love doing that. I sat at the glass one time. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. To moving to Kitchener and watching Ranger games, and I was around for the Jeff Skinner years, Gabriel Landeskog and Michael Catanacci and all of those guys. I love throwing it back to those names. That was such a phenomenal years. But I think there has to be a certain level of pride to play in Canada, and I can totally understand wanting to go to school and getting a great education at a school down south, plus playing hockey, which is a bonus. But I want to see the best Canadians play in Canada. That's a personal opinion. And I think with this agreement, again, it opens doors, but I think it also, helps players leave. And much like we see with the American National Team Development Program, if you come to the Canadian Hockey League, it's going to be tough to make the World Junior Team for the USA. We've seen a new number of players who haven't played for USA in the World Juniors that probably should have, but they're playing in the Canadian Hockey League. So that's just my personal opinion. But I think in terms of the overall, what's best for the player, I think it's awesome. You give them more avenues to the pro ranks.
Dan, I tried goading you into a hot take on our podcast last week. You weren't biting. You're talking about, you're so logical all the time, measured, calm, cool, completely like you're the anti-Farwell. Make no mistake about it. How's the water temperature today, Dan?
Well, I think these fellas just hit the nail on the head. I think the biggest issue is there's going to be the Wild West for a while, and we don't know how it's going to settle out. But that loyalty piece that we talk about, I think that over time, players are going to see the value of that, the value of committing to a program and being there for a while. And it's a two-way street. If you commit to them, they'll commit to you. And these teams are going to start looking for players that have that commitment and that loyalty. And if you think the grass is always greener on the other side and you're eyeing the NCAA for whatever reason, I mean, look no further than the transfer portal in the NCAA right now. There's about 6,000 people, it looks like. So a lot of these kids don't really love their situation. Wasn't necessarily what they were promised. There's going to be a lot of movement. So I think things are going to settle out. We're in for probably a couple years of disarray, but I think the biggest threat is what we've already identified it's that instability, the lack of uncertainty for these franchises going forward. And I think that they're going to have to find mechanisms to make that work over time. And we'll see that sort itself out.
The main reason I was hoping to get this collaboration put to bed, and I'm so glad that Brandon and Reese and Colin decided to join me and Dan on the OHL podcast, is because I love the work that they do. I like, truly, guys, it's fantastic. I love listening to you, and it just works out so well that I think both the three of you are in two of the most interesting markets in the league right now. Niagara, for obvious reasons. Brandon, you mentioned that cultural review a moment ago. And then, of course, the ownership change in Brantford. But let's bring it back to the Niagara region, Brandon, and things in St. Catharines. The GM's in place. The cultural review has been completed. I love it. I really do. Going to the Meridian Center for games. It's a great barn. I love the fan base there. Where are we at in St. Kitts right now, Brandon?
Well, until we find out what they're going to do with the coaching staff, I don't really have a complete answer for you. Again, Mike, like Colin and I discussed this, when that whole thing happened, that, that stability and making it a positive culture that people want to be going to every single day. Another new voice is going to be at the helm, and that's tough because it's been, 4 coaches in 4 years in the Niagara region. So obviously with the league's cooperation, they were able to bring in the right people to kind of stabilize the franchise going forward. Basically, that they've admitted that they've had some mistakes and had to learn through a lot coming up from, the junior A level to the OHL level. It was definitely a big transition for them. They tried to, make 26 trades the first year, and it didn't work out for them trying to get the Memorial Cup. And every year, slightly gotten better. They made the playoffs for the first time since the 18-19 season. So there were positives, but you also can't go through a 13-game losing streak. You can't obviously have a review like that in the second half of the year. And, they're going to have to replace their star goaltender, Owen Flores, just kind of like Kitchener. You don't know what team's going to be like without a star goaltender, saving your bacon more times than not. But there's a lot of positives in Niagara with the way the roster is constructed right now. Again, barring any other, commitments or things like that, because I think we don't even know what's going to happen, gentlemen. That I've been told that after the NHL draft, just CHL in general we might see, an avalanche of players that are going to commit. We know Gavin McKenna, talking about what Colin said, elite players, leaving in their draft year would be just unfortunate to see. But we're also going to have the extra import as well. So we don't know what that sort of is going to bring to the organization and to the OHL in general and the CHL for the CHL import draft. So I'll have to wait and see on that one, Mike. I know it kind of sounds like, I'm dodging the question, but until we see what type of coaching staff and what kind of style the Ice Dogs are going to play this fall and making sure what the roster is going to look like. They brought in Grayson Tiller, who's going to be possibly attending Brock University, but playing for the Ice Dogs. That's been confirmed that he'll be playing with the team, but he might be doing some studies at Brock, sort of like Thomas Budnick did with the Brantford Bulldogs in his overage year. So they've got some other things to work on as well, Mike. There's some changes on and off the ice that have been taking place here, but the roster is also something that they have to address here. Because we don't know what's going to happen here with commitments for any teams.
Brandon Caputo is the founder of the Armchair GM Pod, also hosts the Dog Pound podcast. Colin Ward and Reese Domani together host the OHL in 60 podcast. It is the collaboration, and we got to get to some origin stories here. So hang on, because Dan, I want your origin story. How the hell did you get mixed up in this mess with me? Like I can't even remember. I must have some pictures somewhere from our high school days. I'm not sure. But we're going to get into all of that. So don't hang. This is what am I supposed to call this thing now? It's the OHL pod in 60 cast with dog pounds and all of this stuff. Hang on. We're coming right back. The fastest game on ice just hit another gear. Welcome to the Stanley Cup playoffs, where legends are made and every shift could turn the tide. And now with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can take every slapshot, breakaway, and overtime thriller to the next level. New to betting on the Stanley Cup playoffs, you are in for an exciting time. Getting started is a breeze. Fire up the DraftKings Sportsbook app, pick your team to win, lock in your wager, and you are off to the races. It's fast, it's simple, and it puts you right in the middle of the action. Here's the kicker. New customers who bet just $5 will score $300 in bonus bets if their wager hits. That's right. Turn $5 into a playoff payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's promo code THPN to unlock $300 in bonus bets when your $5 bet wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. The collaboration that OHL fans, I know, I think, Dan, how many emails to ohlpodcast@rogers.com did we get saying, can you please bring somebody intelligent on your show? Oh, wait, was I only getting those? I think they were insulting you. Sorry.
Yeah, I couldn't even read those emails. So, yeah.
Remind us again, we've got Brandon Caputo, Colin Ward, and Reese Domani with us, other excellent OHL podcasters. Dansky, how the hell did we get mixed up in this anyway?
I blame you.
So that was simple.
Unlike these other three gentlemen we have on the show today, I come with no credentials or tangible skills or anything. And I think your goal, Farwell, was to make yourself look better. So you said, I know a hack that likes junior hockey. Let's get this guy in. But no, I like the quick version of how I got mixed up. I think, Farwell, you and I go back decades. Following junior hockey, both had a passion for it. Obviously, it's a sideline for me. Years back, before the work I do now, I did a little bit of journalism, hockey journalism. Love it. It's a passion for me. So, I appreciate when you needed a co-host or guest host, whatever you want to call me. You reached out and we we can talk junior hockey all day. So that's my origin story, but I'm sure it's not nearly as entertaining as the rest of these guys.
I will say that the number one thing, and Dan has come through in spades on this. I just wanted to talk about the OHL on a weekly basis through the season, and it was remarkably difficult to find somebody who was reliable in their willingness to do that. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I can't wait to hear what Brandon's bottom line looks like as the founder of the Armchair GM Pod, because he must make a fortune. We make no money, but it's just something that we both love. And Dan's reliability is off the charts. Real quick though, how's it working out for me making myself look better on this thing, Dan?
Oh, I'm
Guys,
sure.
yeah.
I'm sure it's working out great.
Guys, anything? Is it? I mean,
It is.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. I was fishing for it, fishing all the way. Okay, Caputo, let's get into this. I want the origin story of the Armchair GM Pod and how you dragged these other two guys in with you here.
Well, first off, Mike, as long as it doesn't affect you trying to interview the opposing players before games. But,
Why? Why you got to be that way?
Oh, man.
Remind me of my worst moments. Keep it coming.
and also, I think I saw Reese getting excited there when you're reading off the sports betting app. I know Reese is
Oh man,
loves a good sports bet.
I hit one bet.
Attaboy. Hey, DraftKings Sportsbook, promo code THPN. Let's go.
I hope you aren't betting on your Detroit Tigers, Reese. Anyways, so
first place Detroit Tigers.
The Yankees.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't sleep on the Jays either. We're coming.
We are coming. I like that, Wardy. Let's go.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have even opened that can of worms.
Accountability.
Yeah,
That was my fault.
it was actually.
As a Yankees fan, I don't want to hear anything from these guys. But anyway, so the origin story for me really isn't that exciting. But I just grew up, loving watching hockey. I went to bed, watching the scores ticker every single night, or watching, Sportsnet or TSN, and just always, loved watching hockey reporters, hockey, how it's produced, everything like that. Just, hockey crazy my whole life. And then, I didn't go to school for broadcasting journalism or anything like that. It was actually something that we had started a wrestling podcast way back in like 2015. So I know Colin and Reese, like to rip on me for being a wrestling fan too, but me and my former, co-host in this, name was Kyle. And we did a wrestling podcast for a few years, and then we wanted to start dabbling into the hockey with the Niagara Ice Dogs. We were, guys that went to a lot of the Ice Dogs playoff games, things like that. He's a Leaf fan, though, so can't help him on that. And then me being a Sabres fan, we just somehow gravitated toward each other. But then we started the Dog Pound Pod. Well, we started the Armchair GM podcast back in like 2019. So right before the pandemic, and then everybody and their mother tried to start a podcast and realized how difficult it was. But then I tried at the beginning to do like 8 or 9 different sports, and I just realized that was not going to work. I didn't have enough time in the day to cover so many different sports and everything like that. And I knew that hockey was my number one passion, and with the Ice Dogs and everything like that, I wanted to focus on that. So we started the Dog Pound podcast first. We did like a general hockey podcast too for the NHL, but then we honed in on the Ice Dogs stuff. And then in year 2, we were able to become the official podcast of the Niagara Ice Dogs, which I think at the time was the first official team podcast. I know Reese and Colin had started the OHL in 60, but as actually official team podcast, I think we were the first one in the O. So we try to get to that beforehand. Then the pandemic happened and shut everything down, and kind of had to, go and work for a year or two and figure things out. And then, the last few years really turned it into a full-time business. I moved back home to do it. I had a full-time job in my own place, and figured I wanted to go all in on my business, and I've done that the last 2 years. We've won a few local awards here in the Niagara region, expanding our OHL content with the likes of Colin and Reese with the OHL in 60 podcast, and my OHL overtime interview show that you've been on, Mike. So we've been expanding the last year or so, been able to cover some games in Buffalo as well, with us having a Sabres podcast. So that's sort of the origin of how things have gone. And now, 5 years into it, I love what I do, and look forward to the possibilities of what's to come in the future. And, the ever changing, life of a business owner will have to live on social media, which is never a fun time, but I've gotten used to it over the years.
I love that though. I mean, when we got to cross paths during the Western Conference final this past year, and you're in London, and then I finish up the brief post-game show that we have on the road 15, 20 minutes or so after the the final buzzer, and then you're still there and you're doing your show from the arena. Like, you are putting in the time, my man, and I got all the respect in the world for that. Great job.
And Colin was half asleep trying to do that with me when he had to wake up at 4 a.m. So shout out to him.
No, automatic.
But yeah, covering the OHL championship the last 4 years now, with that first one in Hamilton with these guys, and then Peterborough and London the last 2 years. It's been a fun ride in the OHL playoffs, and there's nothing better than it. Except we need to get those logos back on the ice, gentlemen.
Which logos?
The
of the teams?
Like the how the NHL used to have the Stanley Cup playoff logos on the ice and the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think we need to have that back in the OHL with the OHL playoff logos, even or even some sort of patches. I know the guys are big into their Mem Cup and OHL championship patches too.
I like it. We can work on this. We can get some other, like, there are things that we want to fix in the league, which we'll get to in a bit. But
Ryan Crawford, we're listening, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course he is. Listen, if it's not Crawford, it's Sweetland. Sweetland follows everything I say just in case I piss somebody off again. He wants documentation. That's how this works. Okay.
Guidance.
And now the evidence is all there. I love him. I've known Josh since his Belleville days. Another guy that has really climbed that ladder and worked his tail off. Nothing but respect for that too. Okay, OHL in 60 fellas. What? First of all, the most recognized podcast in the league. Thanks for nothing, Josh Brown. Second of all, how did this all start?
Oh, it was, man. So we both went to school for broadcasting, radio and television presentation.
So did I, just for the record. So that's why I'm saying that.
I went to Niagara. Colin went to Mohawk, and of course, I spent all 3 years of my college time as an intern with the Niagara Ice Dogs. I did videography, a bunch of social media, hosted Dogs TV. That was like kind of a post-game recap with some interviews and stuff. And, getting out of school, I'm like, okay, you get out of school and it's like, all right, now it's time to be paid and enough of this intern stuff and free work. And, with my school affiliated internship at TSN 1150 in Hamilton, it gave me a studio once I was done school to be able to continue hosting shows or producing or whatever the case might be. So I remember this was like my second year, I believe. I was all dressed up in a suit. I was getting ready to go to the Meridian Center for an Ice Dogs game. And I was helping out for an open house, the spring open house at Niagara College. And a young Colin Ward, he's a month or two older than me.
You two combined are not as old as me. Settle down.
Hey, I was strutting my stuff through those hallways.
Oh yeah. He comes into Niagara College with his parents and going on a tour, and I know that he was kind of back and forth in between what school he wanted to attend. So, we got into a conversation about what we wanted to do, what he wanted to do, and it just so happened that we played baseball against each other for 4 to 5 years or so. And Colin was playing for Simcoe. I was playing for Brantford. We won every time. And we even beat them in the championship game in 2016.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Or 2014. I don't know. One of those years. And so yeah. And then, lo and behold, we get to my third year of school, my final year, his final year at Mohawk. And we're both interning on the morning show, Marsh and Mello on TSN 1150. And again, still being with the Ice Dogs as an intern there, Colin Ward shows up in his London Knights hat to the TSN 1150 studios, the official broadcaster of the Hamilton Bulldogs at the time. So we kind of had everyone covered there. So we got the idea, and my boss at the time, Mike Neighbors, who also happened to be the PA voice of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, was like, hey, we need some show ideas. All we've got live right now is the morning show and a football show every Sunday morning. If you pitch an idea, we'd love to hear it. So our thought was, it didn't seem like that the Bulldogs were getting as much respect in the city of Hamilton as they probably should have been. And we can thank the city of Hamilton for that. They are no longer there. But, it kind of felt like, this is, an area that I think an OHL show could really thrive. And whether it has a direct impact with the Bulldogs organization or not, I don't think it would really make a difference. So our thinking was, let's try it for a year, see how the show goes, and then we could pitch it to my boss. So messaged Colin and said, "Hey, what are you doing this winter?" And this was probably in November, so the season had already started. And I brought up the idea of starting a show, and he was all for it. So we met up somewhere. We came up with some ideas, what we'd want to do, how long does it have to be, or should it be? And having the studios at TSN was easy. We just went in, recorded it every Sunday night or Monday night, and then started releasing every Tuesday. So, it kind of sucked. We got to a point where COVID hit, of course, and the season got canned, and that's kind of, and it's gonna sound weird to say this, but that's kind of when we took off on the podcast, even though there was no hockey going on. And Colin, you can speak to this as well. Like, you reached out, you had connections with former Pete's goalie Hunter Jones, and we reached out to him, had him on the show, and we've had a number of players, number of media members on our podcast. Hunter Jones still the best interview I would say we've ever done. It was the first one. It was right after COVID, and whether he was allowed to do this or not, he gave us a play-by-play of what those couple of days looked. And it felt like at that moment, with the traction we got from that episode, it just kind of took off. And, we felt really good about pitching this to my boss and getting it on the air. And then Bell Media closed the radio station, and I was out of a job. So, we went on all the podcast platforms, and we've been going ever since. So it's funny that we first met playing baseball, didn't really know each other very well. We were competitors. We wanted to beat each other every time we saw each other. And this is what, year 6 or 7 we've been going, and it's been one hell of a ride.
Okay, just before Colin gets in here, hang on. You said you release on Tuesdays. What time?
7 p.m.
Yeah, see? So, Brownie, ours comes out at 7 a.m. Like, why? Like, ours comes out first, Josh Brown. Sorry, Morty, go ahead. I'm not letting this go, guys. Yes, you can't tell.
No, Josh is great.
Yeah, to you he is.
Yeah. How much did he pay you to say that, Colin?
This segment brought to you by the Kitchener-Waterloo Record.
Yeah. No, very growing up always around the hockey arena. My dad was the president of, back then, the Junior D Delhi Travelers. And growing up in the Delhi, Ontario, it's a small country town, and I was always around the game. I was always around hockey. I remember going to road games and my dad telling me, "Okay, if you hear the coach in the dressing room and you hear some of the speech, you can't tell mom. You're in the dressing room, it's got to stay in the dressing room. You can't tell your mom." So some of the things you hear about, and now when you look back at it, it's like I just fell in love with the game. Want to take broadcasting, want to just talk sports. I live and breathe sports. It's all I talk about. I know my girlfriend gets annoyed by it all the time when I'm sitting there, when we get home and we have dinner and talking about her day, and all of a sudden and talking about someone's ERA on Bowden Francis because he can't throw a strike, or it's like batting practice right now and she's rolling her eyes, or who the Bulldogs play this weekend or something like that, like a little scouting report. But no, I lived and breathed it. No, I went to Mohawk for radio. The TSN internship really, like, that was one of the main reasons. And now looking back at it, Reese with Niagara, it's such, like, that was one of the main things, and being able to go on the radio station, just podcast. And in my graduation year, that was after the college strike, was my last year when the professors walked out. So that was my last year in college, and it was interesting because you lose a lot of opportunity. But a lot of people, unfortunately or fortunately for them, they dropped out of the program, and then I was the only one that really wanted to do sports. So any opportunity that I got to talk sports, I did that. And I mean, when you listen to your professors, you always got to ask their guidance. And anyone in college and radio or any journalism that's listening to this and wants to succeed in sports, don't say no to any opportunity. Constantly be working on yourself, constantly be asking questions. You have to, for opportunities, you have to be looking for that all the time. Make good references, and have good relationships. It's a small world. The world of sports, I guess the sports world or coverage, is a small world. And I know I got a lot of advice. Jim Taddy, he was our sports teacher, sports media teacher in Mohawk College. And I felt bad for him, but I loved it. But there wasn't a lot of kids that went to his class. You had to take it, but it was only radio that could take it. And I remember talking to Jim one day and I'm thinking, it's too bad we couldn't have journalism or like anyone on here, like other like programs that want to get in the world of sports media to take this course, make it more of an elective. So I got talking to Jim, and I always ask him questions if I have any advice. Always. And I remember Jim Taddy's also a Red Wing fan. So talking about the great Mickey Redmond, Ken Daniels there's a big inspiration for Reese and myself. Those guys are the best in my opinion at what they do at the next level. So got to do a lot of like sports recaps for Jim. He every single week in his class, I'd get him to, I'd send him in a sports recap. Can you critique this? Let me know, because I was one of 7 people enrolled in the class at the time, and it just all lucked out. But being able to make good connections and getting the opportunity at Mohawk to get on air, talk. I mean, you're gonna mess up, and I talk a lot as I'm rambling on right now, but you're gonna mess up, and you gotta have fun with it. You can't take yourself seriously at times, and you gotta have fun. And I've just been extremely lucky. I mean, being able to start the podcast with Reese every week, it's funny. We always come on, and it's a good thing we got a gig with the Bulldogs, because we get to talk even more in a week, Reese, because
Mm-hmm.
it probably takes us, if we're going to record at 7:00 p.m., we'll probably end up starting the recording at like 8:30, because we're just talking about everything in sports,
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
about the league. It's kind of the after hours OHL show before the pregame, where we're just talking about what we can do. And then all of a sudden we get in the show and it's like, oh, we just covered it off air. But no, it was very lucky. It's been a great experience. And with the Bulldogs as well, they treat us great. The new ownership, previous ownership, Michael Anlauer has been incredible. He was incredible for us. I mean, Mike's such a genuine person. Like, you're never gonna meet a nicer owner than Michael Anlauer. And then now with the Hyman family, I mean, Spencer Hyman's been great with us.
Yep.
I talk to Spencer all the time. He wants us out there. You know, he cares about the people. I know there's a lot of anxiety about when the ownership changed. You had great people running the organization, and rightly so, with Matt Turek now going to Belleville, and Matt as well has been great for us as well. But Reed Duthie, another one who's been great for us with the Bulldogs. But I couldn't go without mentioning the Bulldogs front office with us. They've been great as well with the Dogcast and on the audio network. Jay McKee, as you guys know, great person. It's always funny because you always think Jay McKee is one of the most intimidating people you can meet when you're like seeing him on the bench with the stone face that he has. And then you talk to him after the game. It's like, yeah, the Bulldogs could lose 10-1, and it's like they won 10-1. It's always the same Jay McKee. And I've just been extremely lucky. We've been extremely lucky to be able to work with a great organization. And yeah, it's just been lucky so far to be able to be where I am.
It's funny. You guys played ball against one another. Dan and I always played on the same team, and then there was that time, Dan. We always played ball hockey together too, except that one time that we got split up, and I was a complete dick to you that night. You remember that? Like, honestly, I couldn't have been more of a Marchand to you that night.
Well, I was listening to Reese and Wardy talk here, and I'm thinking, interesting. They're co-hosting a podcast, and they like each other and want to talk to each other outside of the podcast. Like, what? We should have considered that. Like,
what is this? How does this relationship work? I wanted to get onto, because I know these esteemed gentlemen will have some thoughts too. And I'll start with you, Dan, just in broad strokes here. And I think we alluded to it at the very beginning with the start of the season, Kitchener, Brantford. Why is that going to be? Like, there's 67 more games and Brantford will not come back to the Memorial Auditorium in Kitchener. A rebalanced schedule might be at the top of my list, and I think that's an easy win for the Ontario Hockey League. But Dan, when you think about things that you might like to see tweaked, what comes to mind for you?
Well, yeah, I hate to pile onto that one, but that's a huge one, because we all talk about how we grew up with this league and love this league. And I remember being a kid wanting to collect every puck I could from every team with every
Mm-hmm.
logo and see every team and know the players in every team. And to me, that's just an opportunity for marketing for the league for, when you have a fan base and you're considering going to the game and you're one of those casual fans and you look at the schedule, and I'm not trying to pick on Owen Sound. We just get them a lot in Kitchener, Mike. So we see them so many times. Sometimes you're looking at the schedule and it's like, it's Owen Sound again. I'm going to skip that one. I would love it. Like, for example, last year I was out of town when Peterborough came to town, so I did not see Peterborough live last year. And I think of those opportunities. So for me, that's a huge one. Rebalancing that schedule. Let's see more of it. We talk all the time about the Bulldogs, how much we enjoyed watching them the last 2 years. And like you said, we're going to see them once in September, probably without Jake O'Brien, without some of their key players, and no opportunity again. So yeah, not to pile on to your idea, but for me, it's that I'd love to see the schedule rebalance. Travel really shouldn't be a big factor in the OHL. It's much, much shorter than anything the WHL deals with. So that, for me, that's it.
Yeah, and it was mentioned earlier, 4,000 fans in Sudbury to watch an Erie Otters Sudbury Wolves game because Connor McDavid was there. Just imagine if he's over at the World Juniors, he's injured, whatever, and the Otters make their one trip to Sudbury that season. You might miss the 3 occasions that Connor McDavid could have been in your city, crossing over like that from east to west, et cetera. So I think it's a great point. Brandon, what about you? You've been around this league long enough.
I don't want to see the Brantford Bulldogs anymore.
Why?
The Ice Dogs have only won one time in the last 26 or 27. How many is it, guys? You guys know it off by heart.
27, 28?
30. No, it'd be 30. One out of the last 30.
Whatever it is. That's why I like Reed.
Side left.
That's why I like Reed Duthie, the voice of the Bulldogs. He doesn't give me as much heck as these two guys do. But game day between the Ice Dogs and Bulldogs, that group chat gets muted real fast. But regardless, something I'd like to see change is kind of what Dan brought up about just seeing more teams in general, and maybe seeing less of certain teams because you're getting so many divisional games, which is good and bad when you have 19 other teams that you want to see. I would like to see a realignment of the divisions or the conferences. I've been talking about it a long time. I had a map of all the teams, and I drew a line that I could possibly make like a north and a west, or north and a west, north and a south. Sorry, that doesn't make any sense. North and south, and I think I had to put either Guelph or Brampton up in the north, but one of them would have to sacrifice. But regardless, I do think realignment, and again, whether that be with the other 2 American teams that were rumored to come in, if that expansion does happen at some point in the next few years, if that is a real possibility, I think that the realignment of the divisions and the conferences would be something big. I know when the guys were in Hamilton, it made no sense that Niagara and Hamilton weren't in the same division. And then you've got Erie and Niagara in cross conferences, but Niagara and Erie still play each other like they're in the same division. So there's a lot of weird things going on with how the schedule has to be made because of the divisions and the conferences and needing to face those certain teams certain times. So that's the biggest one for me that I'd like to see a change in the next couple of seasons, with teams moving around now and things like that. I think it would be better for the league, and to Dan's point, we get to see more teams rather than just once a year having a Western Conference team other than Erie coming into the Meridian Center, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's easier said than done, but I'm sure this is something, even some minor tweaks could accomplish this. And I'm pretty sure Herbie Morrell still sits there with a pencil and graph paper to figure out like the logistics of all of this. It's pretty wild what it takes to make everything work, but I think there's an easy win there for the league. Reese, what about you?
For me, I want to get rid of commercials after icings. Like what's the point of having an icing rule if you're just you can take a break for a commercial? For
Reese,
me,
you went to broadcasting school. We need this stuff, right? We need. Can I stop and do another DraftKings commercial? You guys mind?
No, I understand. Yeah, and even going from the 1 commercial break after the 10-minute mark to now the 2, I still kind of have to get adjusted to that, let alone 3 when TSN or Sportsnet used to take over. But like for me, it just kind of defeats the purpose of icing. Like you're not supposed to be able to change. It's supposed to be a disadvantage, and you give the other team an offensive zone draw with some tired bodies. But then no, we're going to call a commercial and you can go change. To me, I think still keep the 2 commercials, but if it's an icing, keep it like a goal. We're not going to have a commercial break after one of those. That's my big one.
All right, Colin.
Oh, I have like 4 things written down.
Oh
We
my!
need a whole
other show,
From video review.
Oh yeah, baby. Let's go. 2
Video
minutes or
review, I
less.
wish there was more control. I wish there was like a command center for video review, so then we have a plan. Because especially in the playoffs, like we saw this firsthand in the postseason, that what's illegal and legal hit, what's a goal, what's not goal, what's conclusive, what's not conclusive, like stuff like that. I'd love to see an actual plan, like an actual command center, to where there's more help and less stress on the officials in the moment. Heck, when you're at the auditorium and you got to make a video review, and you have fans right behind you like that, and the odds going crazy, it's nice to have a little bit of help. I know you want to give the referees a say and it's their call on the ice, and you got to be able to have accountability with that. But I wish that there was opportunity here to really help, because not every team has the same situations for video reviews. And I would love to see like a command center, an actual command center, and know what a suspension is, know why a person's suspended for 3 games, and know the thought process. I mean, in media, we want to know these things. It helps us out. So that was one of them, and I'd love to see a 10-minute overtime. I'll just name those 2. I'd love to see a 10-minute overtime. I think 3-on-3 is one of the best things that hockey has brought in for the consumer. I think 3-on-3 hockey is fantastic, and there's nothing worse. And it's like a commercial break off an icing. 3-on-3, and we saw this 2 seasons ago now with the Bulldogs and Rangers. The game in the auditorium when the Rangers came back in the next day overtime. If there would have been a shootout after that, the lull after the back and forth in those overtimes that took place would have lost the fans. You lose that excitement in the building, and then you got to regenerate it for a skills competition. You might as well do the fastest skater around the ice, and the fastest team wins the game. It's the same thing, in my opinion. So I hope that was a thing that they could do. I know the safety and it's extra shifts for your elite talent, and they're already playing. That means in the regular season, a November game, you're playing 30 minutes a night for an elite player if you're playing 10-minute overtime. But the opportunity, we want to see the elite players in our league. That's what makes the league special, that to see those guys. And the league is proud of the Connor McDavids, the Steven Stamkos, the Jeff Skinners. Like, they're proud of that, the league. And I think that it's an opportunity when you go to a hockey game and you get to see. And I remember going to a game as a kid, growing up a London Knight fan. Sorry for you in Kitchener. I mean, hey, I respect the Rangers. It's my favorite visiting arena. But
where's the picture of you and Dale Hunter?
Yeah.
Put it up on the screen. I got to see that.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that going to those games as a kid and being able to see Gabriel Landeskog on Kitchener, and then being able to see in London Corey Perry, like that, those are the guys you want to see. Being able to see Patrick Kane, I want to see those guys play, and to see an extra 5 minutes of them is spectacular. And also, we don't have the lulls of the shootout, so I would love to see a 10-minute overtime. I think it's great for the fans. Those are the best games.
Okay, get rid of the shootout. Couldn't agree more. But you just mentioned the name, and as a Knights fan, look at that.
Oh,
a
no.
young Wardy with Dale Hunter. Yes, sir.
That was March break.
If you're not watching on our YouTube channel, you missed out.
Knights
Brandon,
camp.
that is beautiful.
Knights camp, March break.
Knights camp, March break.
I think I was 7 years old in that picture.
As a Knights fan, and you mentioned some Ranger players and that rivalry, Corey Perry, Mike Richards, center ice. I just pulled it up on YouTube the other day to show my wife. This is how lucky a lady she is, okay? Come on, Wardy. Who won that fight?
Well, Corey Perry's the worm, but I'll give you Richards.
You're damn right Richie won that fight.
Hey, I don't think, like I said, hey, ball's not in the Knights' court anymore. The Rangers, I love going there. Great hospitality. Maybe this is why Josh Brown likes us. Maybe I just butter him up. Hey, maybe if we go like, maybe I'm like that defenseman that's just a passer, and I'll let him score the goals. Being his D partner, I'll just pass him the puck all the time. There you go. Empty net, drop it off so you can get the empty netter. Just an overall nice guy, great guy to play with. Have like 50 assists, but no goals.
I absolutely love it. Dan, do you remember that beautiful few months in the league a couple of years ago where they actually did send out explanation videos? It was kind of like the NHL was doing it for a while. And to Colin's point, we got more information about what made a play suspendable. Those were great days.
Clarity, right?
Yeah.
Information. Like, yeah. And before we leave that, like Brandon, if you could just hold up that photo again, I want Mike to have access to Dale Hunter for another few minutes if you don't mind.
Hey, I could have
It's
interviewed him
funny.
for you there.
You could really, Mahar. You're a funny man. Yeah, I know I couldn't, so you're that far ahead of me for sure. All right. Dan, it's like you read my mind. You see, you two knuckleheads, Reese and Colin, like each other. Dan and I rarely talk. We rarely plan, but it's like we're on the same wavelength because there is one more thing we need to settle. But we got to do this thing that Reese hates. But we're trying to make some ends meet here, Dan and I, on our podcast experience. So hang on. Just a quick little break here. You're going to love the commercial sponsorship that's coming up. And then the question that has to be answered by all of the OHL podcast people in one place right now. Stay with us on all of the OHL stuff on all of the podcast channels. Hang on. We're right back. Okay, Dan, you couldn't have set it up any better than you just did by making a Dale Hunter / London Knights reference, and Colin got us there. I'm going to get out of the way for this, but I want to know from my fellow esteemed OHL viewers and podcasters, back-to-back OHL championships, 23 seconds away, let's say, from making it back-to-back Memorial Cup championships. I'm here to tell you that anybody that thinks the London Knights are taking a step back this season had better think again, because even a step back for the London Knights probably means competing for a division title at minimum. But that's just me. Brandon, start with you. What is in the water in London? Come on. They are a dynastic organization.
Yeah, I mean they just keep they keep turning the wheels every single year, Mike. And 2012 and 2016, they ripped my heart out of my chest. Those were two fantastic London Knights teams as well. And now back-to-back J. Ross Robertson Cups. They just continue to be, the benchmark team in not only the OHL, but I think in all the Canadian Hockey League as well. So, it's crazy to see the amount of accolades that they've been able to have, the amount of players that have been drafted. 13 NHL prospects this season. Obviously, they're going to lose some players as every team does, but it seems like the London Knights do such a good job of being able to develop their young players along in the right way, and be able to have that next core really take over. But again, like the London Knights never really rebuild in a cycle of junior hockey that's so hard to compete year in and year out. They find a way to be able to do this, and now hopefully getting some NCAA commits to come as well. They got it with Andoni Femus and Blake Montgomery this season, which helped them as well. So I look at the London Knights and I just think that they're never going to be out of it. Maybe they won't be a 50 plus win team like the last two seasons they've been, but they're going to be right there. And I'm sure Thorne in the Kitchener Rangers side and everybody else there in the Western Conference that they're still going to have some elite level talent. And we should expect London to be, I would say, between the 4 and the 6 spot in the Western Conference, if not better.
I might have to exercise my host's prerogative here and not let Wardy in on this question at all. But Reese, start us off from the OHL and 60 side. What's with these London Knights?
Yeah, I think there is an advantage to having an NHLer as a head coach. I think, and we see it in Brantford all the time, Colin. Jay McKee understands what it takes to play in the NHL, and that's not to say other coaches who didn't play in the NHL don't know what it takes, but I think there is a little bit of a secret to having a guy that played in the NHL for a number of years, and Dale Hunter, and having the Hunter family running the London Knights for a number of years. So to me, that from afar, and Colin, we've covered a few games in London, but as an outsider of the organization, it could just be something that, yeah, he played in the NHL. He understands it maybe a little bit better than a lot of other coaches do. And, a junior hockey system, a true, developmental system is the best way to go. And Dale going through the process of trying to get to the NHL as a youngster, a teenager, and then ultimately making it there. I think there's a big secret there. Maybe not a secret, but I think I think that's a very underrated part of Dale Hunter and the London Knights organization, is that if you do peel it back and you look around the league about NHLers who are actually coaching, it's there aren't that many. So I think there's a little bit of added intrigue for players to go play for a guy that played in the NHL. So for me, I think that's the big thing, is they know how to get there the best, and I think that's why I'm a big believer if the Hyman family does this correctly, I think they have an opportunity to be the same. And with Zach Hyman being a successful NHLer, Jay McKee, depending on obviously how long he stays in Brantford, they could really create something that maybe it's not exactly like the London Knights, but you could have continuous winning or close to it like the London Knights do. So, I think the NHL aspect of having a former NHL as your head coach is a big part of it.
Yeah, and that new arena coming to Brantford is going to be a fantastic piece to that overall puzzle for sure. Can't wait for it.
Yep.
Okay, March break, London Knights camp guy, go ahead. Fine. We'll let you talk.
Plug your ears, Kitchener Ranger fans. No.
Oh, man. He's wearing Ranger blue, too. All right.
Hey, I don't mind the Rangers. Shout out to Josh Brown. No, it's funny. My dad's cousin, I don't know if he got drafted by the Rangers, but I had a tryout with the Rangers back in the day. So I might have if you would have actually made the Rangers, I probably would have grew up a Rangers fan, just because living in Delhi, you're halfway between the two. So you pick a side, flip a coin. But that probably would have made it easier. But no, London, and I think back, we had a conversation on the OHL on 60 podcast during the COVID days with Mike Stubbs, radio voice, great person. Mike Stubbs is really professional guy. And I remember chatting with Mike, and one thing that really stood out to me was the London Knights. They tell you the system, but when you come into London, you have to play a certain way, the London Knight way, and they have every element to their game. When you look at the team, they have that enforcer, the pain in the behind like Ryder Bolton. They have the skilled guys, Easton Cowens, Denver Barkeys. They have every element to their game, but when you come in, you have to play a certain way. When you come in at 16 years old, you're not going to be the guy. You're going to get limited minutes, but you're going to play the system and you're going to play the London Knight way. And that's just the way you're going to play. Then 17, you're going to get more opportunities on special teams. Then 18, you're going to be a drafted player. That's when you get your opportunity. When you look at Sam O'Reilly, Easton Cowan, when he came up, I remember Easton Cowan when he came up and he started his first year, 16-year-old year in Kamoka. And then he got the call up for the Knights when they played the Rangers, and the Rangers beat him in the first round back in 22. And I think when you look at that series and you look at Easton Cowan, the way he played in that series against the Rangers, he was just a forecheck guy. He was hard on the forecheck. He was hard to play against. He didn't have a lot of points, but he was in every single hit, and he came out with the puck every single time. And that was something that's really impressive, because you give them the opportunity. Then you're a drafted player. You're first round pick by the Leafs. Next thing you know, you're 18 years old. You're in the Memorial Cup 21 seconds away from winning the Memorial Cup. And then your final year, you look what you did this past year. Every single group, every single draft class, I find myself looking at London Knights draft class and thinking, okay, you look back to Denver Barkeys draft, high skilled, got to grow a little bit, you got to get some size. 16, he didn't play a lot of minutes, but he looked good in those minutes and limited minutes. 17, he's killing penalties, playing power play. Then he's captain of the Knights. The Knights do that so well, where other teams, it's interesting when you see other teams try to adapt to that model, they just can't do it. And obviously that's because there's coaching, there's things that go into that, but I respect that, the development of the league. And we go back to our earlier point, guys, where we talked about how we don't want it to be a U18 league, and I don't want it to be like guys only here for 2 seasons. But that's kind of a thing that could hurt the London Knights if you don't get that stability where guys aren't here for the full 3-4 years, because when you see the way they developed and the way their process is, it's a long process. It's a hard process to be an elite player on the London Knights. It's hard, but you get those opportunities, and that's why it's so important to stay loyal to the structure. But that's one thing too to think about the London Knights, but they just do a really good job of developing, and they really are patient, and they give you opportunity at the same time. It's hard to find.
Dan, we got a bunch of Eastern Conference guys with us on the pod this week. You and I have talked at length about London, including through this year's playoffs, and we got to see them firsthand in that Western Conference final with the Kitchener Rangers. When you look at the Western Conference next season, we're not going to discount London no matter how many players they lose. I think Windsor is absolutely, we saw shades of that beginning last year. Erie's going to be interesting without Malcolm Spence now. But when you look at the Western Conference this year, starting with London or whatever else, I think Sioux's a team on the rise again. What are you seeing in the West?
I think the West is going to be really interesting this year. We always know London's in the mix. So if you take your 4 or 5 teams, it's London and who else? We've referenced Kitchener, but I think I wouldn't even sleep on Sarnia, to be honest. They've made a couple nice additions. They're ready to kind of take a next step. And I know Sarnia fans are going to say, yeah, but we've heard that before and it hasn't materialized. I still like where they're headed if they can get the coaching side kind of straightened out and go from there. We know Sioux really came on the second half, and the teams that interest me are those kind of teams ready to take that next step. And I'd throw Owen Sound in there as well. Owen Sound really competed in the last half of that year, and we know they've got some incredible young talent. I'm not talking winning the Western Conference, but I'm thinking they're going to make things interesting in that middle. So we'll see who emerges. I think, like we talked with Kitchener, they need some goaltending. I'm not sure we're going to see a whole lot out of Michigan this year. Sorry, Michigan listeners. I don't think those teams are going to do a lot this year. But Windsor, for me, too, is the one that could threaten at the top of that conference. Depending who they get back, there's some question marks around who might return, but they look like they're top heavy for sure.
You remember how much the people in Michigan like us, right, Dan?
I know,
like they're just going, okay, the hate mail, send it to Mahar, OHL podcast at Rogers.com. Sarnia, Legwan maintains some ownership stake, but new ownership in Sarnia, including the father of former Sting captain Braden Guy. So there you go. And yes, I think they love what they're doing in Owen Sound. The fans up there at the Bayshore have really liked the demeanor of that attack team. Brandon, anybody else in the East? I mean, Brantford goes without saying. I think Brampton's taking a pretty big step back this year. What are you seeing in the Eastern Conference?
I think the East is wide open, gentlemen, because if you look at it, obviously, Brantford's going to be one of those top contenders, but you look at the teams that were at the top, you look at the Oshawa Generals, they have a bare, draft pick cupboard. They're going to have to recoup some guys and really, try to see how things are going to go for them moving forward into sort of a transition. Barrie, we don't really know what they're going to do as well, what players are going to be coming back for them as well. I'm really interested in the North Bay Battalion, because you look at, they went to the Eastern Conference Final the last 3 seasons up until this last season where they rebuilt and, we're even in a playoff spot for most of the year, dropped down to 8th, did make the playoffs. And then obviously lost to Brantford in a pretty quick series there. But I think what they've been able to do, picking up some great young players from the Barrie Colts, and the way that that management team under Adam Dennis has just done a terrific job. And I know Colin and Reese talk about they can't rave enough about Ryan Houlihan as a top 3 coach in the Ontario Hockey League, what he's been able to do with that program. Being able to turn them around to get to the Eastern Conference Final 3 years in a row, and then have a competitive team in a rebuild year. I really think North Bay is going to take a big step forward this season with the moves that they were able to make, and again, this is barring any sort of other commitments to the NCAA that we might see after the NHL draft. But I think North Bay is going to be moving back up the Central sooner rather than later. Sudbury, like Oshawa, in my opinion, has some lean years coming unless they can really get things figured out. And Reese has ranted about Sudbury going all in this year, whether that was the right decision or not. And again, Niagara is always going to be a wild card because you look at the young talent that, if they don't get in their own way, they should be a top 3 or 4 team in the East this year. And they were for half the year, and then things sort of went the other way. So if we're taking, Brantford out of it, because I think right now I know how much you love the preseason power rankings, Reese. Those are always your favorite. I think that I'd say Brantford and North Bay are the most intriguing teams to me, with an honorable mention to Niagara and possibly Brampton, depending on how many players they gain or lose in the next coming months.
You can hear those Reese rants on the OHL in 60 podcast that he co-hosts with Colin Ward. They also co-host the Dogcast pod together. I'll get it all right. And Brandon Caputo, the founder of the Armchair GM pod. Guys, this has been so much fun. We have to stop here because Josh Brown has to get back to writing another column. Like he got so much love on this episode. I don't know. Like the guy's head's not going to fit into the Memorial Auditorium next season. Come on. This has been great.
Oh, this was so much fun. I hope we get to do this again. Yeah.
Promise me we will.
What a treat. Yeah.
Okay.
I will. Absolutely.
All right.
Okay, I'll change it. Not I hope we get to do this again. I can't wait to do this again. There we go.
You guys are a little bit young, but Dan, you remember in the 1980s? You were actually a little bit young for that, but the TV shows used to cross over with one another. Remember?
Yeah.
So like the characters from Simon and Simon would show up on Magnum PI. I know you guys are all just rolling. Like, who is this guy? Anyway,
Right.
so next time you knuckleheads have to host us. You see how that's all I'm saying here.
I'm
Okay.
in.
Just no Toronto Maple Leafs jersey for you, Mike, because between the three of us, we might not be able to come back on this show.
Agreed.
Settle down, Mahar.
Hey.
All right. Enjoy the offseason, fellas. Enjoy the draft coming up. It's going to be a bumper crop of OHLers going in this draft. And this is going to happen again, either on your network or ours, because we love the work that you're doing in this league. So keep it up. And thanks for joining Dan and I on the OHL podcast.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been a lot of fun, and always great to see your guys' work and the great work that all of us are doing to cover the Ontario Hockey League and going forward. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah, no,
Fans, check out the OHL in 60 podcast. Check out the Armchair GM. Check out the Ice Dogs official podcast, the Bulldogs official podcast. These guys are doing great work around our league.